Hey there, Family Guy fans. Get ready for an uproarious ride through some of the wildest, weirdest, and downright hilarious moments the Griffins have ever had. From Peter's bizarre adventures in dating,
This is Scott.
Who's Scott?
My soulmate, Lois.
football, and even fake deaths, to Stewie's genius mischief and Meg finally snapping.
Is it too much to ask to be treated with a little decency from my brother?
This compilation's got it all. Whether it's a storm brewing inside the Griffin household or Peter somehow becoming an NFL star, you won't want to miss a minute of this craziness. Buckle up, because we're diving deep into some of the most iconic, absurd, and laugh-out-loud episodes of Family Guy. Ready? Let's get started. Peter's life gets shaken up when his mom, Thelma, divorces his dad, Francis, and starts dating none other than Tom Tucker.
Peter, I left your father.
At first, Peter's not thrilled after all. Who wants their mom dating a local news anchor? But soon, Peter warms up to Tom like a slow cooker on a Sunday afternoon. He starts seeing Tom as the dad he never had. But just as Peter's heart starts to thaw, Thelma dumps Tom like last year's fashion. She decides to focus on herself for once. Peter's devastated, and suddenly Tom's his best friend, like the old man who gives you candy in the parking lot. Meanwhile, Stewie accidentally becomes part of a radio show because why not? It's Stewie.
Nobody better lay a finger on my butterfinger. Do.
If there's a microphone, he's getting in trouble with it. Up next, we dive into the chaos of Patriot Games, where things take an even more absurd turn. Peter decides to attend his high school reunion, and surprise, he's pretending to be a millionaire astronaut.
I'm a secret agent astronaut millionaire.
Classic Peter move. Things get even crazier when Peter meets NFL legend Tom Brady. After a few questionable decisions and a bizarre sequence of events, Peter's somehow playing for the New England Patriots as their starting center. The Patriots may need new scouts, because Peter plays like a hot dog on a treadmill. Peter's inflated ego gets him kicked off the team, and he joins the London Sillinannies, an English football team that plays softer than a pillow fight at a sleepover. In true Peter fashion, he gives them steroids to make them tough, but they end up using it to, wait for it, they get into pillow fights. Looks like the only thing they're shooting for is a good nap. Peter may not have a Super Bowl ring, but he does have a bunch of confused English players wondering why their muscles are suddenly enormous. Meanwhile, Stewie's betting on sports like he's the next Vegas bookie. And if you thought that was hilarious, just wait until we explore the antics in Petarded. After Peter wins a game of Trivial Pursuit by answering questions meant for toddlers, Brian dares him to apply for a MacArthur Genius Grant.
Well, if you qualify as a genius, the foundation will give you a $500,000 grant just to sit around and do whatever you want.
But plot twist. Peter ends up being diagnosed as mentally retarded. At first, Peter's devastated, but then he realizes that being special has its perks. He gets away with things that normally would have him on the express train to trouble, like walking into women's bathrooms and burning Lois with hot grease. Guess what? No consequences. Things take a turn when the state takes the kids away, and Cleveland becomes their temporary guardian. Peter tries to prove he's a better parent by hiring 7 prostitutes to show he's reformed, because what says good parent like hiring a crowd of prostitutes? In the end, Lois returns, but not without a side of French fries scented perfume. Some things never change, and Peter's parenting is definitely one of them. Following that masterpiece, Seahorse Seashell Party keeps the laughs rolling with its outrageous moments. A hurricane traps the Griffins at home, and it doesn't take long for everyone to start getting on each other's nerves. Brian tries some psychedelic mushrooms naturally, and Stewie follows him, proving that even when tripping, Stewie's still the most grounded person in the room. Brian ends up hallucinating that he's Vincent van Gogh and starts cutting off his own ear. Meanwhile, Stewie's deep thoughts have him pondering the meaning of life, wondering if the universe has a sense of humor. Spoiler: it does. Meanwhile, Meg finally hits her breaking point and unleashes a hurricane of truth bombs. She calls out the family for all their messed up habits, from Peter's stupidity to Lois's emotional baggage. Peter tries to deflect with jokes, but Meg's on a roll. The family's dysfunction has never been more dysfunctional. But in true Family Guy fashion, Meg apologizes and everyone tries to make nice.
I'm sorry, you guys.
You're a bitch.
Hurricane Meg might have passed, but the storm's in their hearts. Moving on, pilling them softly brings us a fresh dose of Griffin family madness. Stewie gets prescribed a ADHD medication, but Brian secretly takes them because why not? Things go south quickly when Brian becomes hyperproductive and obsessed with pitching a book idea to George R.R. Martin. He's writing like he's on fire, but when he meets Martin, the pitch falls flat. Meanwhile, Quagmire tries to make a cooking show, but Peter hijacks it and uses it as an excuse to eat all the food. In typical Peter fashion, he consumes everything in sight. Quagmire's pissed, and Peter eventually concedes, but not before an all-out food fight. Quagmire's ready to punch Peter in the face, but deep down, he knows Peter's the one friend who will never let you down. Literally. but you'll probably want to punch him in the face every other day. From there, we head into Family Gay, where the humor reaches new heights. Peter buys a brain-damaged horse that wreaks havoc and causes $100,000 in damages. In typical Peter fashion, he doesn't just buy a horse, he buys the worst horse in the universe. To pay off the debt, Peter decides to become a medical guinea pig, and soon enough, he ends up developing a gay gene. Lois is confused, weirded out, and suddenly in the mood for a good old-fashioned family crisis. Peter starts acting, well, a little too fabulous, falling for a man named Scott. Lois, feeling the heat, sends Peter off to conversion therapy camp. But when Peter comes back, the gay gene's cured, and he's back to being his usual idiotic self. But wait, here's the kicker. Mort throws the dead horse's body through the wall like it's some kind of bad punchline. After that unforgettable episode, McStroke takes things to an entirely new level of ridiculous. Peter grows a mustache and suddenly gets mistaken for a fireman, leading him to a hero's welcome and an endless supply of free food. But then Peter's binge eating catches up with him, and he suffers a stroke, enters stem cell treatment, and a deep dive into McBurgertown's shady practices. Meanwhile, Stewie makes a bet with Brian, claiming he can become the coolest kid at James Woods High. Stewie's popularity spikes, but everything unravels when he gets publicly humiliated by Connie D'Amico. Of course, Stewie has a planned revenge. His intellect shines as he uses it to get Connie arrested. Is there anyone more devilishly brilliant than Stewie? Probably not. Next up, Dia Boom delivers a wild mix of humor and chaos that's impossible to forget. It's New Year's Eve 1999, and Peter's freaking out about Y2K, so he locks his family in a bomb shelter. The clock strikes midnight, and boom, a nuclear holocaust wipes out Quahog. The Griffins, along with a few other survivors, must navigate a post-apocalyptic world where radiation and mutated creatures rule. Stewie mutates into an octopus, because why not? The Griffins eventually find the Twinkie factory and establish a new town, New Quahog. But Peter's leadership skills are about as good as his parenting, so things fall apart fast. Stewie's mutations spiral out of control, and the whole thing ends with a Dallas-style twist. It was all a dream. Just another Family Guy moment. And speaking of unforgettable, Death is a Bitch takes center stage with some of the show's funniest moments. Peter finds a lump on his breast and fears it's cancer, but when it turns out to be benign, he decides to fake his own death to avoid medical bills. Unfortunately, Death shows up to collect Peter, and after a series of events, Peter finds himself taking over Death's job. Naturally, Peter's incompetence leads to disaster when he accidentally kills 2 airplane pilots. With the help of actress Karen Black, Peter manages to set things right, but Death isn't thrilled. Peter's antics might be over, but the chaos is never ending. The hilarity doesn't stop there. In Lethal Weapons, the Griffins are back with even more outrageous antics. Lois becomes a taijutsu black belt, and Peter's feeling insecure, so he manipulates her into helping him drive out the Leafers from New York. Lois goes rogue, attacking anyone who crosses her path. Peter tries to intervene, but it quickly escalates into an all-out family brawl. Brian tries to mediate, but it's all just TV violence playing out in real life. In the end, Lois and Peter reconcile, but not before some epic smackdowns. Following the fun, believe it or not, Joe's walking on air keeps us laughing with its signature brand of absurdity. Joe finally gets a leg transplant and can walk again, but it throws a wrench into his relationship with Bonnie. Meanwhile, Peter is left wondering how to cope with Joe's newfound freedom. It's a strange series of moments, but the heartwarming part comes when Joe and Bonnie work through their new dynamic. They might not be running marathons, but they're learning how to run their lives with a little less bitterness. And that's a wrap on another roller coaster of Griffin family chaos. From Tom Tucker's short-lived romance with Peter's mom to Peter's glorious football career, these episodes are what Family Guy does best, taking the ordinary and making it, well, a bit more insane. But hey, that's why we love it, right? Whether it's heartwarming moments or straight-up absurdity, this family never disappoints. If you enjoyed these moments as much as we did, don't forget to hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe for more laughter, chaos, and Griffin family madness. Until next time, keep it quirky, keep it funny, and remember, Peter might be an idiot, but he's our idiot. Catch you later.